Hello friends and enemies, it's me Isabel here with your Romancelandia. So I'm a little behind this month, but like honestly, are we surprised? Because like travel and we had our impromptu hockey romance coverage. It's been, I gotta say, it has been an interesting time over the last month. Like even since like pre the hockey talk situation. Because a lot has happened. Okay, so I want to start with one thing that got announced, I think around the same time as the hockey situation, and that is Bindery Books. Mostly I want to talk about this because like I think it's a discussion we should just kind of like put on everyone's radar. This is a new startup of sorts, we'll call it, that is basically taking influencers and allowing them to help funnel books that fit their like niche into publishing. And we, as readers or consumers, can pay to be like on their team, basically. We don't know what all that means yet. It is a big list, mostly of TikTokers. There are a couple people that also do YouTube, but this is the list I'll show you. And what I wanted to tell you is that I thought it was really interesting that this happened. And Kevin, who basically, we know if you were on TikTok, I feel like for his Bookish Box takedowns, he really addressed a lot of issues that Bookish Box was having, to the point at which they threatened him with a lawsuit. But Kevin over here, his imprint's name was Afterglow Books. And if you watched last month's update for June and July, you will know that Afterglow is a new imprint that was just launched by Harlequin. And they literally launched that imprint, and this was announced not long after. And that, for me, gives me pause with Bindery Books personally. Because how did they not know? Like that trademark, that copyright had to have been in process for a minute. So I just think it's really strange that they allowed him to name his imprint that without realizing that, you know, this was a thing. Maybe that's just me. I'm not sure. I just think it's interesting to witness. They have already changed his imprint's name, so like don't worry about that. Like they fixed that real quick. But yeah, it's supposed to launch in September. I kind of just wanted to mention it so we can all keep our eyes on it, see what this means. I think it's, like I said, I consider it a startup. It's basically meant to be a publishing disruptor. It's an option that's not quite indie, and it's not quite, what do you call it, like a full-blown like publishing house publisher. It has potential here, okay? The revenue splits are interesting. I will link to a couple threads and some videos I have about it if you're curious to learn more. Like I said, until it's in action, I don't think we're gonna know a lot, but curious to see what it means when it is actually happening and books are coming through, right? Like I like a lot of the people they have involved in this, but I just can't not pause at it and think, is this gonna be a mess? So I'm putting it on your radar because it's on my radar, so we'll watch and see what happens. All right, next we have our Kiera Lewis Kraken situation update. We had more news coverage, of course. Who's surprised? I'm not. I will say things have calmed down a lot on this. Caveat here, I am an Emily Rath fan, okay? I do enjoy her books. I own her books signed. Like, I really like her. I think she did a great job handling the situation and immediately being like, I'm going to cut this off. Like, if teams want to interact with me, I'll interact with them, but I'm not going to, like, you know, do the same thing that Kiera Lewis was doing. And Emily Rath was never doing the thing Kiera Lewis was doing, if that makes sense. Like, she wasn't screaming inappropriate things at the players. She was just like, oh yeah, that is totally what X character would do. That's all the ones I got. So I think it was really interesting to watch who continued to target Emily weirdly after the situation and feel that she didn't take enough accountability. I mean, everyone's left to make their own choice on who did or didn't take enough accountability, right? I just think it's interesting because she was very fast, in my opinion, to post a video being like, this is what I'm gonna do, these are steps I'm taking. It is a long video, but if it wasn't a long video, people would also be mad because she didn't say enough. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's that rock and a hard place situation. But I do want to give you the best update / most not surprising update is that Kiera Lewis has crossed the picket line now for the Red, White, and Royal Blue movie, because she is posting, she posted a video that has been marked an ad, of course, it's a paid sponsorship for that movie, which means she's crossing the picket lines for the SAG-AFTRA strike and WGA strike. Yeah. You with 1 million followers, you can't tell me you're not crossing the picket line. I can understand the argument for somebody who has a really tiny account feeling like they aren't crossing the picket line, but I think when we're talking 1 million people follow you and you did a paid promotion with Amazon, who's part of the strike, who's part of the streaming situation, really? Really, Kiera? I am disappointed but unsurprised at the end of the day with this one. I just wanted to share because I can't seem to escape the ad, and I refuse to block her because, like, what if something else happens? I have to know, right? Like, I'm nosy. I gotta know. And honestly, I'm glad I didn't block her because seeing those TikToks as ads constantly just confirms my feelings on it so much. Next, let's talk about a new initiative that launched last month. The 23 for 23 initiative launched at Steamylit, and this is led by a bunch of amazing authors. And I wanted to talk about it here because it's gotten a lot of attention on other bookish spaces. You've probably seen rec lists going around already, TBRs going around already, all kinds of things for this initiative. The initiative 23 for 23 is about reading 23 more BIPOC stories by BIPOC authors in the rest of 2023. If you don't read that much, you can adjust your numbers, okay? Like, nobody's, like, it's not a big deal. Or you can count titles you've already read. But if you read a lot of books in a year, challenge yourself to read 23 more BIPOC stories by BIPOC creators, authors. Obviously, I know, like, there's a lot of turmoil with the word BIPOC by a lot of people, which, by the way, if you don't know, it stands for Black, Indigenous people, and people of color. That encompasses basically anyone who is not white. Take what authors identify as to use as your guidance here. So that initiative launched. I encourage everyone who watches Romancelandia to challenge themselves to read at least 23 more stories this year featuring these communities and written by people of that community. I personally will be doing so. You should see content from me specifically around those books because one of the things Nisha said when she talked about launching the initiative on the keynote panel is that it's 3 times the effort to make a 10% change. So my goal is to do 3 pieces of content per book I read that I love. I don't know what I'm going to do if I don't like a book, but for now the goal is to hopefully pick exclusively books I really enjoy. I probably will just try and find another book if I don't like one that I read because I don't want to give negative attention here. This is like all about uplifting things that I really enjoy, in my opinion. This is also an opportunity I want to say to audit your reading for the year. Have you done well or not? Can you make changes? I know I could do better this year. I want to do better this year. I am going to make changes the last 3-4 months of 2023 to make sure I do better. It's not a huge ask, it's 6 books a month basically through the end of the year. I know it's like a little less. We're just gonna say 6 books-ish. And I think it's a great opportunity for those of us who are voracious readers to just make sure we're checking in and that we are doing the work to read diversely. I also want to remind everyone that, like, not everyone started the diverse reading journey at the same time, so we're all in different places on this. And I think it's important to remember that even if you've started your journey of diverse reading, you can always audit it and see what communities you're missing, because there's always communities you're missing. There's always room for growth. Maybe you read a lot of Black romance and you're not reading a ton by Asian authors or Southeast Asian authors, or maybe you're reading Black romances and it's all American Black love romances. Maybe you can go read some authors from the Caribbean or other places. Like, there's so much out there now that I really think it's very easy to, like, get in a rut of reading from the exact same community where, like, you can definitely audit and expand. I, for one, like I said, am going to be doing so. I plan to make most of my members' picks for the rest of the year part of underrepresented groups at the very least. I think in December we're probably going to read a Hanukkah romance, so, like, that is an underrepresented group, although not the same as this challenge necessarily. But I just want to remind you that, like, maybe don't post the TBR for this, but instead post the books you read and talk about them extensively, whether that's in your Instagram stories, your posts, like TikToks, whatever. Like, I would love to see, I already follow people that give me amazing recs all over TikTok that do not look like me. And that's one of my favorite things about TikTok, right? Is I've found so many people that give recommendations that aren't just the same olds. It's people that, like, I potentially have never even read a book from or heard of, so that's exciting. So yeah, I highly recommend you post some content, talk about them, do the things to read 23 more. I would love to know what you end up reading and loving. So, just, like, do the challenge. It's totally worth it, even if you've already read 23 books. Like, it's not just a checkbox, it's kind of an audit of your current reading and seeing where you can improve. That's the way I would take it. I will link to Nisha's TikTok about it, and I will also link to the website for you down below. I just want to like I said, I've seen a lot about the challenge, and I think it's just really important to remind you that, like, you know, TBRs are great, but let's actually read the books. Let's not just post a TBR we never read. All right, let's talk about Steamylit. So I attended Steamylit. I had a great time at the event. I talk about it in my vlog. I think that Steamylit, for a first year event, did a really good job as far as the logistics of organizing and running an event go. I do and have seen a lot of the critiques, and I don't disagree with the critiques either, okay? Like, you know, they specifically wanted to spotlight diversity and inclusion for their event, right? So that is a spotlight. Their first keynote panel was all about that. The panels themselves varied in diversity. If you want to go look, their Instagram does have all of the panels up still. And one panel in particular came under the most scrutiny, I would say, and that was the disability panel, because it featured 0 authors of color. And it had one author, April White, who was on the panel and is not disabled but writes stories about people with disabilities. Y'all, I don't know how else to portray my frustration here, because, like, there were so many authors at this event that were neurodivergent that could have been in her spot instead, that were authors of color. And, like, it just boggles my mind that this panel happened and no one was like, wait a minute, we need someone else to represent in the group. And a couple of the panels also did lack Black representation, which was disappointing to say the least. I went to the Fat Rep panel. We did not have a Black author on it. We did have Olifa Martinez, who is Latina. So, like, you know, there was some there, but not as much as we would hope, right? And I think that is such a hard thing, right? When you set out to do this thing that is all about diversity and inclusion, the spotlight, the magnifying glass you are going to get put on you is much bigger than a normal event would get. So I think, you know, Steamylit apologized. They said they're going to have a steering committee next year to help make sure the panels are diverse and they're, you know, well-rounded in representation. So that was good, because, like, the keynote panels were really well-rounded. But it was weird that then going to, like, the Fat Rep panel, that we didn't have any Black representation, and there were plenty of fat Black authors there. But I don't know about crossover times, like, was an author that could have been on that panel and other panels and they didn't have anyone else? I don't know. And some authors may not want to be on panels. So, like, I also think that's an element to, you know, keep in mind. I also don't know if Steamylit took panel submissions or came up with panel ideas and asked people, or how they did that part of the planning. So I just think next year they're going to very easily be able to hopefully shift and adjust and improve the panels, because the panel, like, discussion topics are fantastic. Some of the ones that I was most ever interested in going to at an event. Normally I skip most of the panels, and I did skip a lot of panels here, but I went to more than I normally do. So I think that alone, that's a win to an extent. But like I said, I do think there's a lot of improvement to be made. They were very, very quick to apologize and posted their apology. It is not my apology to accept. I'm not part of the harmed group. So keep that in mind when you read the apology. I would love to hear from people who noticed the lack of certain identities on panels and what you thought, or if you attended all the panels, what you thought. Like, if you know, were the panels you went to pretty well, like, rounded in diversity, or were they, like, mostly white authors? That's what I would like to know. I'm very curious. Like I said, I only went to the keynotes and the Fat Rep panel. So let me know in the comments if you attended and what you thought. I just, like I said, I do think overall we're looking at so far an event that has a much calmer energy than other events I've attended, and also is pretty chill. So that's nice. So Kindle Unlimited is in the discussion again. Kindle Unlimited page read numbers are down, way down. So I just want to talk about that. So you're probably seeing, if you haven't already, or will be seeing, a lot of authors rotate between being in KU and being wide with books. I've already seen this with some authors I liked for a long time, and I don't mind that. I think it kind of motivates me to read things sometimes. I have seen some authors just talking in general about how low the per page read payout is for KU right now, and it's literally the lowest it's ever been. They just raised the prices, and I don't know if in the last round a lot of people canceled with the new prices or what, but I've got to just, like, y'all, we have to, as readers, potentially start emailing Amazon and complaining that KU page reads are so low that our authors that we love and the reason we pay for KU aren't here. and they're having to leave to make money. One thing to also keep in mind with KU is that if you loved a book on KU and you want to reread that book, buy the ebook to reread it or buy the physical book, because that author only gets paid one time when you read it. And if you read that book 6 times in KU, they're not making anything. Like, if you think you're like somehow paying them a little extra, you're not. So I highly recommend buying the book physically or digitally if you love it and are going to reread it. Depending on the option the author has selected, they are probably more than likely making 70% of an ebook sale, which is going to net more than a KU read through generally. And like I said, if you're rereading it, buy it one more time. Why not? Give your author a little extra pocket change. Another thing that was suggested was, obviously, if you really love an author and you can support their Patreon, you know, and do your best to like buy things like that, buy signed books from them. But one big takeaway I have gotten from every single author talking about KU right now is, do not cancel your KU subscription. It's only going to drive the per page read payout even lower if you start canceling. So keep that in mind. I will keep an eye on this and check in again if we get any more updates. But for now, I think it's just been an interesting turn of events on KU, / not a huge surprise, because we've talked about this a couple times before with KU. I'm never probably going to cancel my KU, because personally it allows me to try a lot of authors that I want to try with minimal stress and lower commitment. Because if I don't like the book and I read a couple pages, they still get paid at least a couple cents. So the last thing we have to talk about is a not fun thing. It's something I hate that we have to continue to do, which is we have to talk about an author called Bryn, who has continued to DM readers and industry professionals claiming that Freitas Moon has harassed them. Freitas has distanced themselves as much as they can from this situation, but Bryn was caught being racially aggressive in a private space toward Freitas. And this was corroborated by Rainbow Crate's officials and other authors. Fortunately, Deanne's behavior is pretty well documented. Freitas shared a ton of screenshots in the thread I will link to down below. They basically got caught harassing Freitas, Bryn, and then has kind of tried to flip the script that they were being harassed. And it's just interesting. I think for me, the fact that Bryn as an author was like DMing readers to try and like say things about Freitas Moon is really inappropriate. I just do not think authors should be in readers' spaces when it comes to these things. I think it's really weird as an author, just like in general, to like DM readers and be like talking about another author unprovoked, unsolicited, just because they talked about this author they don't like. The block button exists, and so does like muting things on TikTok or on Twitter currently. So I just can't recommend enough that like if somebody bothers you, just block them and move on. It's really not that big a deal to do that. You don't have to turn it into this like thing wherein you then prove yourself to be racist and shitty as a white queer author. That's what makes it the most disappointing to me, I guess, is like, you know, I had one of their books on my Kindle actually, and I marked it as read and put it in my author's behaving badly folder because I can't. Like, I'm not gonna read them. Like, I have no interest. I also think it's just really weird to target another author that's part of your community, like has intersections in your community. So like what are you doing? Are you just jealous? Like, I don't understand. So yeah, I will have links to this thread for you down below. I just wanted to let you know because Bryn was an author I saw a lot during the trans rights readathon, and was an author I honestly had seen a couple covers of and was interested in reading. So there's that. That is it for Romancelandia this month though. So like, we made it out not too badly, honestly. So I would love to know what happened this month that you liked hearing about the most. And if I missed something that you think I missed, like, let me know down below. If you don't want to do any of that, leave me a black cat emoji down below, because Peas is literally like in the middle of the tripod right now. It's really cute. So you can leave me that down below, and I will be back to talk to y'all in just a few days in my next video. Bye.
Already packing, come with me. I'm not really asking. We'll get away to a place where we don't know. About to see